Hi everyone, Zach here, and welcome to tutorial 19 in this series on developing an RTS game in Unreal Engine 5. In this video, we'll be finishing out the construction system with regards to how we place a building. So we find where we want it, we click on the map, and it builds the building at that spot, assuming it's a valid spot to build it at. We will have to come back and update the system after we've taken care of resources and after we've taken care of our units, because both of those will play a factor in can we build this and how fast can we build this. And I'll talk about that a bit more as we move through this video. After that, we're going to take care of our UI elements in the next video, which should finish out this section. All right, if you've enjoyed this series so far, please hit that like button down below. It really does help this channel out. And if you want to take your support just a bit further, leave a comment. Again, it really does help this channel out. Or if you want to go even further than that and help yourself a bit and know when these videos are coming out, make sure to hit that subscribe and notify icon. And even then, if you want to take it just a bit further, consider becoming a Patreon sponsor. At upper tiers, Patreon sponsors get instant access to ongoing and completed projects from the YouTube channel. And at other tiers, get access once the project has finished on YouTube or has been marked as completed for whatever reason. So like the old RTS tutorial, for example. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's make a start by opening up our projects, and I'll see you in just a moment. Okay, so here we are back inside of our editor. And we are going to approach this in a backwards way from how I would program it. Now, I would program this by working on the individual functions within our building and building manager. However, that is really hard to understand what's going on, why it's happening, what we're really doing, and all those little bits and bobs that go with it. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to build the system from the user's point of view. What happens when the user wants to click and all the processes that go on after that. So the first thing we're going to do is actually we're going to check something completely unrelated to all of that. I just want to make sure that in my project settings, and I'm pretty sure I did this in video 17, but I just want to double check that we have turned off virtual shadow maps. We have. Awesome. The other thing I want to talk about before we get into this is something I said in either video 17 or 18 about changing out to include interfaces to communicate between the building manager and building master. Interestingly enough, in my C++ project, I did use interfaces. However, there is a small reason why it doesn't really matter. We have to figure out what we're going to do about that if we're going to do anything. And that is, there's already a hard reference. The second we use this, that return value is a hard reference. So we're copying all that data in. So we really don't need to use interfaces to avoid some of these issues. Okay, I'm going to leave this open. I'm also going to open up building master, but we're not going to touch them for a minute. Instead, I'm going to go to my enums folder. And in my enums folder, I'm going to create a new subfolder called player. Now, in the original RTS series, for those who watched it, there was a lot of Boolean logic we used to figure out what happened on left versus right click. Instead of using Boolean logic, which you really should not use for complex states like that, we're just going to use a simple enum. So I'm going to right click, go to blueprint, and select enumeration. And I'm going to name this EPrimaryActionModes. Now that I've moved my microphone from being in front of my face to being in front of my hands, I am running into an issue where it's hard to type. So either the option I can't type or I can't see what I'm typing. All right, so for our first mode, we'll do selection. This is the base mode where we can select things, move our mouse around without things following it around. Then we'll have construction, which is when things are following our mouse. So like when we select a building to build and it's following our mouse, that's construction mode. Then we'll do deletion. And this is for when we want to delete buildings and things like that. And to disable. We might have more in the future, by the way. Disabled, just so I can explain this, is when inputs from the user are disabled. So you might actually want to include checks that we aren't disabled. But again, we'll come back to that when we need to. Next, what we're going to do is go to our player and our inputs, and we're going to right click and go to input, go to input action, and do IA primary action. All right, let's go ahead and save real quick. And then in our IMC, which all these are going to reopen, so I'm going to hit add. or one of them is going to, we will add in our primary action. I don't know what that bug's about. Under primary action, I'm going to click the mouse with that now orange or yellow. I'm going to click the left mouse button again, and it fills in as left mouse button. I don't need to add anything in here, so we're good to close this out. Just going to save it first, though. I am experiencing a bit of lag, just so you're aware, and there might be things where I will have to change up how I'm showing stuff. Then we go to the player folder, and in the player folder, I'm going to open up player controller. All right. Now, I'm going to take every one of the nodes we have so far and the comment that I completely missed there. I'm just going to move it to the right, and I'm also going to move this upwards just so it lines up a bit better. We'll organize this more thoroughly in the future. All right. So in my new space to the left, I'm going to search for IA and then primary action. Cool. Here is our primary action. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to switch based on that enum we created what we do. Now, right now, we don't have anything really to work with. We only have our construction. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the plus variable here to add in our action mode. And then under our variable type, I'm going to search for EPrimary, and then I'm going to select EPrimaryActionModes. All right. I'm just going to drag that onto here, and I'm going to do a switch. So we want to switch on our modes. All right, let's plug that into there. And then I'm going to pause for just a minute from thinking about our construction to address this action mode we have. We need to create a function that allows us to change what our action is. So we're just going to create a new function called SetActionMode. And we're going to take our action mode, plug it into there, plug the input pin into, or the action mode enum type into the input node, and do a return. Right. That was pretty simple, right? Awesome. We will mark this as private, and we are going to put this into a category called inputs. All right. Let's go ahead and compile and save everything. We don't need that open anymore. And I'm going to put set action mode into inputs as well. Set mouse position into inputs as well. Okay. Next, what we need to do is start building out our construction. So we have a bunch of actions we want to do. We want to get rid of the preview and want to ensure that we have the resources for it. Oh, well, we can't really do that. Check towards the number of units in the building to start constructing it. Again, we can't really do that yet. We want to spawn the actual construction in and get out of the action mode of construction. Okay. So I actually already know I'm going to need a little bit more room than this. Funny part is in my prep file, I did it all to the right, but I kind of prefer it here. So what we're going to do first is we are going to create a new method called pre-construction actions, or construction checks actions. So I'm going to rename it to in this version. So it'll be called construction checks. And all we're doing in this is checking, are we able to actually construct this? Now, I know I made a mistake in an earlier video, and I know this is going to run into an error. I'm not going to fix that error until we see it. So the first test we do, we will not have a successful result. I'll talk about what's going on there and why it's happening. And in this, it is very, very important you remember off the false branches to still pass through to the returns. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we are going to check, is our preview valid? So we're going to get our building manager, and we're going to search for get is preview. Oh, wait, we don't have that, do we? Nope. So we need to create a function for checking, is the preview valid? We're also going to need to check, is it overlapping and is it on a slope? So let's check, do we have those? I'm pretty sure we don't, and I know we don't, by the way. So we're going to go over to the building manager, and we're going to create those functions. So in our building manager, and these will technically be part of the preview system, we're going to do a bunch of peer functions. The first one will be get is preview valid. In other words, do we actually have a building we're previewing? And what we're going to do for this, actually, I'm going to change this up a bit from my prep file, because we're going to have two things we're looking for. First, let's put this in the preview folder. Second, let's make this a peer function. Then let's grab our building ref. And first, let's do is valid. We want the one with the F, not the question mark. And the second thing we're going to do is get instruction. Oh, okay. I actually thought we did have that one already in there. All right, we're going to go over to our building master and create another quick function that will go into our global called get building status. And that will go into global. And if we go to status, we have our construction status. We're going to get that. And also we have preview, under construction, built, damaged. And all we're going to do is do a return and plug that into there so that we're returning that building status, make it a pure function. Go ahead and save. And let's go back to our building manager. And we're going to do get construction. Sorry, I named it the wrong thing in here. So that should be get construction status. And I was going to double check. I swear we had done this one previously, actually. Just going to double check we haven't. No, we have not. Okay, cool. Oh, I meant to leave that open. Whoops. Get construction status. I'm going to reopen it this way. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to check, is this equal to preview? So if both of these are true, we have a valid reference to a building ref, and that reference is currently in preview, then we have a valid preview. The change I made was, in all my other versions of this, I just checked is the reference valid, not its actual status. And this will be valid preview. Okay. Next, as I said, we need to create a check for is it on a slope and is it overlapping. Now, let's go back to our building master and check our preview functions. We have set, preview mesh, material, move mode, rotate preview, get vector, check is overlapping. All right, we need two more getters in here. So we're going to create a bunch of wrappers to communicate back to the player. First one is get is on slope. That's a pure function. It is part of the preview family. It's going to just check, are we on a slope? And let's make sure this is marked as private. It is. Awesome. And then we're just going to return. And we're going to return that is on slope. Okay, now that we've done that, we've finished out with our building master for now. Just going to make sure, because I made a mistake and went back and that I've actually deleted the mistake. Yes, I have. So we're going to go back to our building manager. And then in here, we're going to create another new function that's going to be a wrapper, as I mentioned, for functions in our building master. And the first one will be get is preview overlapping. This will go into our previews folder. We are then going to get our building reference. We are going to do check is overlapping. We have that already there for us. And then we're going to redo return. Make sure I mark this as pure, by the way. And then from the is overlapping, plug that into the return node. And then we are going to get is preview on slope. Again, this will be a pure function. We're going to get our building ref. And we are going to do get is on slope. And from our input pin here, we'll do a return. We will plug the is on slope into the return, and we are good to go back to our player controller. So in our player controller, what we're going to do first is we're going to check is preview valid. If it is valid, then hey, we're good to go on. So we're going to have a branch. If it's not, then we're going to exit out at this point. We have a couple of other exit points, so we're going to do that all at the very end. The next branch we're going to do is right off the true here. That's our first check. Are we valid? The next check we're going to do is, are we on our slope and are we overlapping? In this case, are we not either of those? So I'm going to get our building manager, and I'm going to do get preview overlapping. Plug a little reroute into the start of this thing. You know, you'd think I'd eventually not run into this error, but I keep doing so. All right, and then we'll do get is preview on slope. We want both of these to be false, so we're going to do a not Boolean on both. And then we want, as I said, we want to make sure that these are both false, and that they are both means that we're using an and node here. We're going to plug that into our condition. All right, let's just make this a little bit nicer and neater, and I'm also going to move this over instead of trying to fit that in there. Okay, so next, if this isn't true, we're going to fail out as well. So actually, I do want to move all this over a little bit so I can have enough room for that false to come through. Next, we're going to just put a reroute in here. Actually, we're not going to put a reroute in. I know why I'm saying that. There's no need for a reroute here. we're going to have a bit here that we can't do right now, and that is checking if our resources are valid. So we're going to have another branch after that, and we need some room for that. We're going to mark this as true for now. We're not going to plug anything into the condition. So what's going on here is we are checking if the player has enough resources. And if they do, we're good to move on. So we're going to do our first return node, and we're going to mark this, we're going to add into this an output called valid build. We're going to mark this as true here. And then off our false, we're going to do another return node that will leave marked as false on our return. And then from our false, from the slope check, we're going to plug that into a reroute, which I forgot to put into our second return. Awesome. So that no matter what happens, we're still returning, hey, this isn't valid. Because we have a return, we really do need to have all this to go through. And then from our first false, we'll likewise have another one plugged into there. And we'll line that up. Okay, so now we're saying, 1, that we have a building that's valid. 2, it's in a valid location. And technically 3, that we have enough resources. We're automatically just pushing it through since we don't have our resource system in yet. But the check will go in here, and the final check will be the condition that we plug into there. Right, so now that we've done that, we can take our construction check and plug that into construction. And we're going to categorize this into a folder called buildings, subcategory construction. All right, so once we've done that, we're going to have another branch, because if it is not valid, we do not want to move on. We don't want to build anything. We want to do anything. We just want to get out of there. So next what we're going to do is we are going to delete the preview. Now, I know that when I first wrote the C++ code for this, and I wasn't doing replication, I was just doing a quick test to see, can I build this? I didn't need to actually store the variables. When I started doing it for replication, due to ownership, yes, I had to store the information somewhere and then pass it back to the place where I got the information from. So in this case, the building manager stored some information. I took that information, copied it from the building manager, and then passed it back into the building manager. Technically, you don't need to do that in a single-player game, at least for the setup I was using. However, I can't remember how I got that to work, so we're still going to do that. We're just going to do it in a slightly different way than what I did with a replicated game. So we need to create a new function, both in our player controller and in our building manager. So let's go to our building manager first, and we're going to create a function called store variables. Also, we're going to go into our building manager and put this under preview. So store variables will be a construction function, our first construction. So this will be store variables. And we're going to put this into a category, as I said, called construction. It is not a pure function. And all we're going to do is we're going to create a new variable called building transform. We're going to just set it here. And we're going to store building transform into a folder called construction from preview as a subcategory. I might rename this later on. Also, I believe snap values should be categorized as part of preview. So let's just put that into our preview category. So to get our building transformation, we're going to take our building ref here, and we're going to do get actor transform. Now, why are we not using this preview transformation? Well, that preview transformation might not be the correct value. It might be where we first put the preview in when we spawned it in. It might not update. In fact, we don't really update it. Okay, next, we're going to need to get the row name so we can pass that back in. So we're going to do a new variable called building row name. This will be of type name. It will go into our construction from preview, and we are going to set it right after we set the transform. And then we might need another variable. Can we get the row name from this? Get row name. No, we can't. It has a row name, but we marked it as private. So if we go to our variables in here and go to master, row name is marked as private. So we're going to create a new global function. It'll be a pure function called get building row name. Pure, global, and then just going to do the return. And then what we're returning is the row name. Cool. And then actually, I'm going to do one more just in case we need it. I'm not sure if we'll actually use it. I have other ways of doing this, but we're going to do get building data, which will also be global. It will also be pure, and we'll do a return here. And we're going to return from this the structure for our building. All right, go ahead and compile, save, and go back to the main editor. And from our building ref, I'm just going to add a reroute in. I'm going to pull off of this and do get building row name. And there we go. There's our building row name. And then finally a return. Let's head back to our player controller. And then after this true here, all we're going to do is call up from our building manager, our store variables. Awesome. So now we're storing the variable information. Let's put a reroute in here because we're going to want one more function after this. And let's do destroy preview. And let's make sure this is the correct destroy preview. Okay, it is. In my prep file, when I first put this in, I actually got the one inside the building master. Okay, so there we go. And then we're going to just name this or collapse this down to a function called remove preview. And we'll put that into our building construction subfolder. Okay, now that we've done that, the next thing we're going to do is go to our building manager. And we're going to create a new function called spawn construction. From our spawn construction, we are going to do spawn actor from class, because we've destroyed it originally, and we're going to spawn in our BP building master again, and our spawn transformation will be building transformation, and our row name will be our row name, our building row name, and our construction status will be under construction. So we're going to do a couple of things. First, we're going to check, is this valid? We're going to do that by checking, is it not equal to a null pointer? Okay, there we go. I'm going to add a reroute in here. And if it's not equal to a null pointer, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to promote this to a local variable called building local. I'm going to add another reroute in, plug that into our true. And I'm just going to line those reroutes up. There we go. And move the one over here a bit to the right. So the next thing we need to do is create a new function called set building status. So go over to our building manager. We're just going to do a new custom event called set building status. And we need a new variable. They'll go under status called building status. And this will be of type integer. It will go into our category called status. We will compile and default the value to -1. And we're going to plug this into our set building status. We're going to plug the building status setter pin into our input pin. So we have an argument we're passing in. And then we're going to get our construction status. And we're going to do switch on construction status. Now, likely our damage will be very similar, but for now, we're just going to worry about built and under construction. And we're going to do set mesh. And this is the function we created a few videos back. And we're going to plug both under construction and built into there. And we're going to take our building status and plug that into our index. That's why we're starting at -1. We're going to change that as we move forward. Okay. So next what we're going to do is go back to our building manager. And in our building manager, we're going to do set building status. And we're going to set it to 0. So this will be the first element in our array of meshes, or the only element, depending on how you set yours up. Now, we could also just have done it this way too. That works just as well. In fact, actually, that's what we will do, just so we don't have that reroute going all the way through. We're then going to actually, I lied, we're going to put the reroute in. We're going to have 2 reroutes, in fact. We're going to pull off the second reroute and do a new function, which we haven't created yet, called add to unconstructed list, which will be in this particular class. So let's add this first to construction. We're creating a new variable or function called add to unconstructed list. So this will be the list of buildings that are not constructed. And the reason we're doing it this way, if you remember in the original RTS tutorial series, all the buildings manage their own construction. All the timers on them are running. Now, there's a lot of timers we could have had in there, or lots of use of tick. we're going to manage that all from one location to reduce the overhead of this. We're going to manage the timer for every single building in our building manager. That's why we have this manager. It is a one-stop shop to do all the heavy lifting. So we need a new input for this, and this will be what we'll call new building, because it is a new building. And it'll be of type BP building master. And we're going to check, is this valid? And we're going to use the one with a question mark. And if it is valid, what we're going to do is we're going to take this new building and we're going to do add unique. We're going to plug that into the is valid. And then we're going to take the array here and promote that to a variable called list of under construction buildings. I realize under construction probably is one word, but I want it separated out to make it easier for me to see. And this will go into our construction. Okay, now let's head back to our spawn construction. Let's grab our add list and put it first in our construction folder. Drop that into there. And then take our building local and plug that into new building. Okay, and now we've added that to a list of buildings that we want to construct. And lastly, we're going to have something called set construction timer. And that's the sort of meat of everything here. So let's create a new function called set construction timer. In fact, actually, sorry, I said the meat of everything in here. The function after this is the meat. This is what kicks off that bit of what we're working on. And this will go into a category called construction, of course. And what we're going to do here is we're going to check, is the last index here greater or equal to 0? In other words, is there anything in this array? So is the last index equal to or greater than 0? If it is, then we have something in this array. If not, we're going to exit out and do some other stuff. We'll talk about that in a moment, though, because the other stuff really kind of relates to what we do after this. The next thing we're going to do is have another branch, and we're going to check, do we already have a timer handle running? Well, we need to make that timer handle, so we're going to ignore the condition for about 30 seconds here and do set timer by function name. And the function name is going to be, which we haven't created yet, run construction event. This will be a looping element. We'll worry about the time in just a moment as well. And we're going to promote the return value here, our timer handle, to a variable called construction timer handle. Also, I've edited this error out, but I forgot to delete this variable. I'm deleting this building status thing. Completely ignore that. Okay. So now that we've done that, what we're going to do is we're going to worry about our time. And we're going to create a variable called base construction speed. Now, all buildings will work on this base construction speed. However, it will be augmented by the number of units that we are using to build that building. Okay, so once this is uncompiling, I'm going to set it at a value of 0.1. There we go. I'm going to add this to a folder called construction. Actually, I'm going to put it into a subfolder, and that subfolder will be called settings. Okay, let's add base construction into there. That is not what I'm looking for. No wonder that didn't work. This should be of type float. Yep, I don't mind changing it. It'll be 0.1. I need to compile again, plug that into there. It will be a value as a set of 0.1. Okay. So next what we're going to do is we're going to go back to this branch now that we have our timer handle, and we're going to check, which by the way, we're going to put under construction. We're going to check, is this timer handle not valid? Because if it's not valid, then we need to make it valid. So is timer active? So we're more concerned about is it active versus valid. And we're going to take a not bool. If it is not active, it's not valid, then we're going to make it active and valid. We're going to get it to do what we want to do, which is to run through the construction events. If our last index is not equal to or greater than 0, then we want to check, is the timer handle active or is it valid? So if either of these are true, so we're going to use an or, then we are going to disable and invalidate our timer handle. So we're going to take our timer handle and we'll do clear and invalidate. Right. Awesome. So now we're getting into the meat of what we need to take care of, which is this run construction event. So I'm going to take the name here. I'm going to copy it so I know I don't have any typos. I'm going to create a new variable, paste that name in. put this into the folder of construction. And in here, what we're going to do in our run construction event is, well, it's a bit messy. So we have a bunch of checks we need to do first. And let's add our branch in for this. We need to check first, do we have a list of buildings we're actually working on? So we're going to get our list of unconstructed buildings. We are going to check the length of it. And for a couple of reasons, I want to make sure this length is greater than or equal to 1. I know I could use the last index, but for this particular one, I like approaching it from this method. And we want to know our speed multiplier is not 0. Well, we don't have our speed multiplier here, do we? So let's go take care of that real quick. So to take care of that, we need to go back to our event graph. And I'm actually going to put it towards the top. So I'm going to move all of this down. And we're going to need to work at the begin play. And we're going to create a custom event. Let's do the custom event first. So we're going to do a custom event called update game speed. So we're going to create a new variable called game speed, which will be of type float. And that's going to go into our game speed folder. The reason we're doing this is we need to know if the game is paused or not. If it's not paused, we don't want construction to happen. We're going to then pin the game speed setter into our game speed there. And I will set a default value of 60 just to match everything else we're doing. Okay, and then from there, we're going to do a set speed setting, and then set speed multiplier, which comes from our function library that we created back in section 2. And then we're going to take this last one and promote it to a variable called speed multiplier. Awesome. Now, while this will work off the bat, as we've set a default value in here, it won't be reflective of the actual game. So to make it reflective of the game, I'm going to quickly put this in that game speed category. We need to actually get our game speed and bind an event to listen to it. So what we're going to do is we are going to get our game state. We're then going to have to pause for a moment and head over to our interfaces folder here. And we're going to need to create a new interface. So blueprint interface called BPI game state. I mean, honestly, at this point, we should be casting if we're doing this, but we're probably going to update this in the future. There's just a reason for what I'm doing right now, just to make sure this works. And this will be get game state. It's going to have one return. It'll be our BP game state. Okay. And that's it. Yep. So let's go over to our game state now and apply this method. So let's head over to our main window, go to settings, go to game state. In class settings, we'll add a new interface in called BPI game state. Cool. And if we go to our interface, we should have get game state. All we're going to do off the new param, which we'll rename in a second, is add self in. Let's go back to the BPI real quick and rename this as game state. Okay, compile, go to your building manager, and then we're going to do get game state message version of it. Plug that into the event begin play. And then from there, what we're going to do is we are going to bind event to game speed control. Okay, and then we're going to create event, and the event we're going to create is our update game speed. So now we will have an update to our game speed. And just to make sure that we don't have any errors, what we're going to do is actually call the update game speed event we've created. And we're going to pass in our starting game speed. Now, the reason we're doing this is I have found that if we don't do this on event begin play, that we will run into an error where this won't update until we've changed the setting at least once by hitting one of the buttons. So now that we've done that, let's go back to our run construction. And in our run construction event, we are going to check, is our speed multiplier not equal to 0? If it is not equal to 0, we are not paused. And then we're going to have a third check we're going to do, but that check is something we'll be working on later. So we're just going to mark it as true. And then in the future, we will add in working units greater than 0. So that is what that last check is. Do we have units in this building? If we do, then hey, we're good to go. We actually might move that check elsewhere. There's a couple of ways we can approach it. So the next thing we're going to do after that is we're going to do a for each loop. And we'll have some stuff off the false to do, by the way, as well. But we're going to give ourselves a bit of room first, mostly because there's a lot to do on this that is going to take up a lot of space. We're going to get our list of buildings under construction or list of under construction buildings. And then again, we're going to promote this array element to a local variable called building local. We are going to check, hey, is this building actually under construction or not? So we're going to take our building local. We are going to do get construction status. And we are going to check, hey, is this equal enum to under construction? If it is, we're good to move forward. If not, this building really shouldn't be on this list. So let's add a branch into there, plug that into there, and we won't really worry about if there's a wrong building on here. There never should be. Next, we're going to have another local variable, but we're going to declare it in a second. We're going to take our base construction speed. We are going to divide it by our speed multiplier, and then we'll have a bit more math to do in the future related to the number of units that we have inside the building. So update for num of units. And then we're going to take this and promote this to a local variable called delta construction time local. Okay, awesome. So that is the update to our construction time. Well, we then need to go to our building and actually update the construction time there, because the buildings will store their own variables for, hey, how much have I been constructed? So we're going to create a new variable in our building master called add constructed time. And I'm stressing the constructed time, so we're going to have a very similarly named variable that will get how long it takes to actually construct this building. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a new variable of type float called construction time. This is, again, the time spent, type float, the time spent building this particular building. We are going to add into it itself. So we're going to take our construction time, add that in, and we're going to, on the B, take that and plug it into our add construction time. And this will be our delta construction time. And then finally, a return node. All right, let's quickly categorize things before I forget to do that. So this will go into a category called construction, which we don't have yet. So let's make it construction. Our delta construction time will go into the category of construction as well, but we'll add it to a subcategory called do not edit. We will edit this only at runtime. In fact, let's mark this as private so we don't make any mistakes with that. Okay, let's go back to our building manager. And in our building manager, we're going to call this up right after we have set our delta construction time. So all we're going to do here is get our building local again. I'm going to cheat and just copy it and add constructed time. All right, and we're adding in this delta time local, or delta construction time local. Now we get to the really, really wonky part of this, I think. So I'm going to copy the building local again, and this is the part that actually makes it really cool as well. We're going to get building data. I just noticed something in here I want to change really quickly, which is our building data should be marked as private. And then in our building manager, we are going to break our building data. We are going to look for the construction meshes. Don't worry about the fact that it looks messy right now. We're going to use switch. Sorry, we're going to get length of them. Now let's take our structure that we broke here and hide unconnected pins. From our length, what we're going to do is we're going to do a switch on int. Okay, let's plug that into our add constructed time. And then I'm just going to move this to the right a little bit. We're going to remove our default pin. We're going to start at an index of 1. And then we're going to have a total of 4 pins. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So just to walk through what we're doing, remember that the switch on int is the length of the number of, well, not construction costs. I got that wrong. Let's break that for a second. And I meant to do construction meshes. It is the length of the number of meshes we have. So if you have 4 meshes total, then you'll only use the then 4. If you have 2 meshes, then we use the then 2. We can, for now, ignore the then 1. If you know exactly how many meshes you'll be using in your project, then feel free to only use the appropriate value. In the case of we only have 1 construction mesh, we actually have nothing to do. It's off the other 3 we care about. So here, again, 1, if we only have 1 item, we do not need to switch the meshes. And because we already start on array item 0, which is what we did here, we do not need to worry about actually updating into that mesh over here. We're defaulting there. We're going to worry about the mesh after. So array index 1, 2, 3. All right. So we never need to update our construction status prior to the start. In other words, if we have 2 stages, stage 1 is default. We wait until we're at 50% through construction, and then we update to stage 2. Remember, stages 1 and 2 are array elements 0 and 1, respectively. Or like with the barracks, a 4-element array, we start at 0. At 25%, through the building, we'll update to array element 1. At 50%, we'll update to array element 2. At 75%, we'll update to array element 3. This way, when the building is finished, you can jump straight from the completed status from whatever status we had at construction previously. Also note that I just had a bunch of proportions, for 25%, 50%, 75%. Well, you don't have to have an equal split like I do. You can use whatever proportion you want. It depends on what you want to do. Maybe it takes more time to get from stage 1 to 2 than it does from 3 to 4. But for now, we're just going to do equal proportions. So we're going to start with our 4, because then we can just copy and paste stuff down as we go. Right, so what we're going to do first is a branch. And we're going to put a reroute in here, mostly because I know I'm going to want this to be way further down. Cool, so let's move this to the right a bit, and now let's go down. Cool, so we have 3 things we're going to check for. Now, there are a couple ways to do this Boolean logic. I just have a particular style I like for it, so it's easier for me to make sure that I'm thinking about things clearly. What we need to do is we need to get how long it takes to build the building and how long it's been being built for. That's why I was stressing those names earlier. So let's go to the building master. And in here, we're going to add 2 variables or functions to our class. And the first one will be get constructed time. So this is how long, or let's actually rename this as get time constructed. Think about this as how long has a building been being constructed for? And we're going to just return our constructed time, or construction time. Actually, we are renaming this. This should be constructed time, not construction time. All right, cool. Next, we're going to have another variable that is how long does it take to build this building? So let's add in, before I forget, mark this as a pure function. Do we put it in a category construction? We did, cool. And then we're going to do get construction time. And again, this will be pure function. So this is how long it takes to build the building. Oh my God, it's all the typos. Get construction time. Okay, pretend that didn't happen. We're going to do a return node here real quick. And we're going to get our building data. From our building data, we're going to break the structure. And in here, we have this construction time. This is how long it takes to build the building. Hide our unconnected pins. Okay, and we can head back over to our building manager. In our building manager, what we're going to do is we are going to take our building local. We are going to get time constructed. Again, this is how long have we been constructing the building. We are going to get construction time. And then finally, we're going to get building status, which apparently I have not done correct. Let's go back here. We're going to find our building status, mark it as private, create a new variable called get building status. It will be a pure function. It will have a single return of type float, or type integer actually. Sorry about that. Okay, so what we're going to do here then is get building status. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to worry about the proportion of how much we have built. We're going to divide how long we've been building by the amount of time it takes to construct this building. We want to know, is this greater than 25%? Because we want to update from the first element to the second element. So is this greater than 25%? And is it less than 50%. So is it greater to or equal to 25% or 0.25? And is it less than 50% or 0.5? And this is less than, not less than or equal to, just less than. Okay, awesome. And then once that check is good, we're going to do another and we want to know, is our building status not equal to 1? And the reason for this sort of weird layering of checks, sorry about that, is first, we need to make sure that we update the building when it's reached the right amount, that it is not over the next threshold we're using, which will be 50%, and that we haven't already updated it. Because it starts at 0. Once we hit 25, we'll update it to 1. We don't need to update it every single time between 25% and 50% constructed. We need to do it once. So this is a way of saying, hey, do this once. We are going to get our building local, and we are going to set building status. And we are going to, at this point, set our building status from 0 to 1. All right. Then we are going to take all of this, and we're going to copy it over here. Right. Let's plug that into our set building status, except for we have some changes to make. First, we are no longer looking at, are we under 25 or at 25%? Are we at 50% or greater? And are we less than 75%? And then are we already updated to stage 2? And if we aren't, then if we aren't already updated to stage 2 and we're in the correct frame of construction, we'll set that to 2. And we will add in a reroute here, mostly because we need to also check this regardless of if this is false or not, because we might be past it. So we'll put the reroute into there. All we're doing is bypassing our setting status. Okay, and if that's true, we're setting it to 2. Then let's paste everything in again. We have our final check, except for this one's going to be a little bit different. So with our final check, we don't give a crap about what our upper limit is. We only care about our lower limit. Sorry, this is double checking something. Are we at 75% or greater? If we are, and we are not already at construction status 3, then we want to update to construction status 3. And like before, we're going to put another reroute in here because we want to do this check even if our second check is false, because, hey, we might have already done it and we're on to our third stage. Okay, so that takes us through that setup, and it's fairly, I think, straightforward on what we're doing. I think I was clear on what the checks are and why we're doing them, but if they weren't, let me know in the comments and I'll help you out. So next, it becomes a little bit easy. We're just going to copy and paste everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the material after the second branch, for the second branch, minus that reroute. So our check, all the conditional statements, the setting building status, and for our final check. And we're going to move that, we're going to paste it up here. And we're going to plug this branch that was originally our second check into the 3 pin there. Okay. So what we're doing with this one is we're just going to change the values out. If we have 3 construction meshes and we want to evenly divide where we change them at, we're going to use a relation of 1/3. So we are 0.33 and under 0.66. And then likewise, we're going to reduce this by 1 because we only have 3. So are we already at construction status 1? If not, and we're at the right proportion, we're going to set this to construction status 1. For our final check, we want to know, are we greater than 0.66? And are we at our second or third, really at the end of the day, mesh? And if we are not there, then we're going to update to that mesh. Okay. And then finally, for the then 2, I'm going to copy the last little bit here, and only the last little bit, and I'm going to paste it up here. And plug the 2 on the switch into our branch. In this case, we only have 2 meshes to worry about. So we're going to, if you think about even proportions here, jump over when we're at 50%. And we're going to check, are we on the second mesh, which again is value 1 here for building status. And if not, we're going to set it to 1. All right, that is how we are updating our meshes for our construction to make it look like things are actually being built on screen. Now I'm just going to line all of these top 2 up with the bottom one. And I'm going to line it up so that the final node overlaps or is near the last one there. And the reason for this is and all will go to the same place. And I can't stress this enough, don't skip this step. I made a mistake in my prep file if you're really curious. So we're going to add a branch in. And that branch will come off the then 1 because we need this on the then 1 regardless. Let's add a reroute in just so we don't have this white line going through everything. And just going to put it up here. There we go. Make sure it's all lined up nicely. Okay, awesome. So what we're going to do is we are going to come back down here. We're going to get our building local. We're going to get our time constructed and our construction time. And we're going to check, have we finished constructing this building? So we want to know, is our time constructed equal to or greater than our time required for construction? So let's go back in here and just rename this as time required to construct, just so it's easier to remember which one is doing which. Okay, from there, let's jump back to our building manager, plug that into there. And if our building has done this, what we're going to do then is we are going to remove the building from our constructed list. However, there is a bit more that we need to do on that. And honestly, given how long this recording is, I'm going to split this into 2 videos. So I was wrong in the intro. Right. So first thing that we're going to do is we are going to just make sure that this works. And again, it won't. There is an error still. Then in the next video, we'll take care of the final steps of the construction, updating the lists and all that fun stuff. So let's take a look at that error. I'm going to before we even do that, let's go back to our player controller. And we're going to just change our sort of cheat method here a little bit, just so we know that it's going to do what we want it to do. So on the flip-flop, I am going to instead get our building manager. I'm going to do get is previewing. If we are not previewing, I am going to spawn in our preview. And then I'm going to do that same on the B here. We're going to get is previewing. And if we are previewing, we are going to destroy the preview. Likewise, at the end of this, I'm going to do set action mode. We're going to set our action mode to construction. And on our remove preview, we are going to, right after it, add in the function we were just working on, which we have to add more to it in the next video to finish it out. We're going to do building manager, spawn, construction. And then after all of that, we're going to do oh wow, I still needed more room. How lovely. We're going to do set action mode, and we're going to set it back to selection. Okay, so let's take a look at what's going on here. All right, I've headed back to my map. Sorry, I had a bit of a lag issue, and I had to restart the editor. So I'm going to just hit play, and I'm going to hit B, and we can see the building is following my mouse. I can rotate it still, all that fun stuff. All right, we're at a valid location, all right? It's not red. And let's make sure, hey, it's red there, not red here. I'm clicking, and nothing is happening. That is not the bug I was expecting to show you. Let me just figure out what's going on here. Right. Cool. So let's just do it this way. Oh, hey, you know what? I did something at the very start. We didn't finish it out. That was completely on me. I'm sure somebody's going, hey, dude, you're an idiot. You forgot this. Go to your player folder, go to your inputs, go into your... I know we did do it. Okay. So let's figure out what's going on. So open up our player controller. Let's make sure we have our spawn mode on. We hit B. Okay. Oh, hey. It is the error we were expecting, actually. It's just showing up differently for us. Cool. What's going on here? Why is this not building? It's a valid location. Let's go in here and take a look. And notice I intentionally left my camera, or intentionally left the viewport at a certain spot. Huh. Right. So something is going wrong with how we're determining if the building is overlapping. Let's go back to our building master. And in our building master, let's go to our calculate slopes. And first error we have is right here. This half size should actually be 1, not 0, 1. And the second, oh, okay. That might have been the only error. Let's just double check. Apparently in my prep file, I made an error that I did not make in this version. Okay, I'm concerned that it's not doing what it should be doing. Right. Let's just work out what's going on then. So we're going to do a print string. And we're going to do, off the print string, we're going to do an append. We're going to do is overlapping. These should both say false, by the way, for it to work. Shift enter is on slope. And I do put a space after each of those colons. Okay. And then let's just go into it that way. So we hit B. And what we get when we do this is on slope is true. And overlapping is false. Okay, that is actually the error I was expecting to see. I don't know why we're still getting it, because that was the one fix that I had in here. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I did misspeak earlier. The second error actually is in here. This should not be impact normal. It should be impact point. So impact point, break vector, Z. Now this should work. Of course, we're not going to see much of anything, but let's just make sure it does actually do what it's supposed to do. Hit B. And there we go. There is our building placed in the world. And just speed it up a bit, see what happens. See if we can get the rest of it to build any. I'm not sure if it looks like it is, actually. One way to check is I'm just going to move this to the other window really quickly. And we're going to go to Manager. We're going to turn on this section. Right, this isn't running, which is a bit of an issue. So we need to get this to run. So this run construction event, let's go back to set construction. And we're just going to put a breakpoint on the set construction timer. In fact, we're going to make sure that we actually call this up, because in my prep file when I was testing this, I forgot to. Yeah, that's the error. We're not calling it up. Awesome. So what we're going to do for that is go to our spawn construction. And after our, literally the same mistake I did in the prep file when I was doing this, by the way, is after I add construction list, we're going to do set construction timer. That's why I knew to do that, because I spent like 10 minutes looking for this, going, oh, I did my usual mistake. All right, let's go ahead and hit play. If I hit B and then place it, and then we sit here for a moment or two, let's just speed it up. Let's make sure this actually is building. Again, I'm a bit concerned that I'm not seeing anything, so I'm going to go into here, and it is actually building. Cool. So I'm a bit concerned that we haven't seen something. I also saw another error that I want to address really quickly. Let's go back to our map, though, and let's go hit F8 so I can get out of the camera and more quickly find our building. It isn't updating the meshes. I'm honestly surprised I didn't get a bunch of error messages. Cool. So is it not updating the building? That's a good question. But first, what we're going to do to avoid an error that I made in the prep file is we are going to put in our reroutes to the finished construction here. So we're going to add a reroute to it. We're going to plug into the set building status 1, add a reroute to that one just to make this easier to do. And we're going to go into our set building status 2, plug into there. Oh, and just to make sure we don't screw this up too much, put another reroute in just to make our lives a little bit easier. And we're going to come off the false into that reroute, because even if we've already set the status, we might need to get around this at some point. Likewise, I'm going to put another reroute into this. And I'm going to come off the false, plug into there. Awesome. And then do the same for this one. And yes, I know I plugged into a different reroute than I did last time. It doesn't really matter. It's all going to the same place. and likewise off this false. Okay, now what's concerning is I know what the meshes should look like at stage 3, and we weren't seeing the stage 3 meshes. So I'm not sure what's gone wrong there. Let's go to our set construction status, set mesh, and this all looks right to me. I'm just going to double check. Right, so I found the issue. It was something completely unrelated to anything we did today. It's in our data table. Let's go open up our data table, and we're going to set our construction time here to 30, so 30 seconds. All right, that should reduce this error. I found that by putting this print string in. Actually, I found it by putting this print string in, and it was always coming up as built from the start, which led me to think, hey, something's wrong here. I could have just gone over to the data table, but I wanted to double check the math was correct as well. Okay, I'm going to leave that built print string in. I'm going to hit play, and I'm going to place it down there. Cool. Now I'm going to speed things up, and there we go. We saw the walls got bigger. We saw the walls are even getting bigger again. There's the frame for the roof, and then when it's built, I'll actually add the roof in. And we'll be doing that in the next video because we have a lot to do still. That's just going to eat up time. I'm already over an hour recording this. I know that I'll likely be removing a fair chunk of this, but if I keep going, we're going to get to an hour and 30 most likely. So that said, I hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial. I will literally be recording the rest of this right after this one, so it'll be a continuous sort of mindset we're going through. And if you have enjoyed this video or this series, make sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help the channel out. And if you want to make sure that you're here when the next video comes out in this construction event, then make sure to hit the subscribe and notify icon. If you want to help the channel further, consider just leaving a comment. It really does actually help the channel. The joys of YouTube's algorithm. And finally, if you want to take it a bit further, consider becoming a Patreon sponsor. This video and this series have been brought to you by those Patreon sponsors. All right, I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.